Yeah, the Strip.
On the Strip.
The old downtown.
Yeah,
Fremont.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. We will call our MAPS 4 Citizen Advisory Meeting for July 14th, 2025 to order. Moving on to items 2A, approval of the minutes of the June 5th, 2025 Citizens Advisory Board meeting. They were included in your packet. Do we have any changes, corrections? If not, I'd take a motion in a second. Okay, please cast your votes. The motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B, receive the MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending May 31st, 2025. Mr. Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have in your packet the revenue expenditure report. Real quickly on the revenue side for the month, $12,621,765, fiscal year of $132,344,833, and a total of $694,051,548. Again, we've added, last month we added this, and I just want to point out again that we've added the projected non-MAPS 4 revenue. You can see there's almost $104 million that is added to the program, and it was becoming kind of hard to keep track of it and not affect the bottom line that everybody's used to seeing, the $1,078 million. So we've added that line in there to help us keep track with where we are on that. Then I want to point out that we still remain 3.3% above the projected collections. Then on the expenditure side for the month, $6,083,318, fiscal year of $83,618,170, and a total of $298,681,387.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Todd? If not, I'd take a motion in a second to receive that report. Cast your votes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item 2C, presentation on MAPS 4 long-range transit plan.
As part of the MAPS 4 program, we had money in there to help Embark with their long-range transit plan. And just wanted to give you an update on what's going on with that. Luke Schmidt from Kimley-Horn is here to give you that update.
Great. Thank you all for having me here today. Really appreciate it. My name is Luke Schmidt with the Kimley-Horn Project team. Today I'm going to step you through the long-range transit plan update. As a reminder, this project has many different project partners, including Embark, MAPS 4, and ACOG. MAPS 4 and ACOG provided funding for this project, and Embark's been leading the project management, and many different government partners and transit operators that have been involved throughout the last handful of months. As a reminder, the really important part of this plan is that ACOG will ultimately be adopting this and rolling it into its regional transportation plan. And this allows for federal funding from a transit standpoint. So really important. Similarly, RTA will be focused on the high capacity transit elements of this plan, and ODOT will be especially focused on the rural transit elements of this plan. And then all of the operating partners will be heavily involved implementing the local transit elements. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the project description and give you an update on that. And then we're going to dive into the draft vision. So first and foremost, from a project description standpoint, we're really focused on how local service can be changed, what those recommendations look like, and then really focus on those long-range investments, think 20 to 30 years out, that are needed in central Oklahoma. With this project, we have 4 major goals, really focused on meaningful connectivity and providing compelling, reliable ridership and competitive service options, all in a fiscally constrained environment. So we're really focused on these 4 major goals as part of this long-range transit plan. As a reminder, from a project schedule standpoint, we're wrapping up the plan. We're in the recommend phase. So this is almost the end of the project as we're rolling out the draft vision for feedback. With a project like this, we're really focused on the long-range vision. So from this plan, multiple other plans and implementation will be done to then flesh out some of these corridors. But right now, we're really at the high-level standpoint at the very top of the planning funnel that you see on this slide. So without further ado, let's dive into the draft vision, which you've all been waiting for, I'm sure, this morning. There's 5 major things that the vision has been focused on. First and foremost is improving local transit service. Second is responding to all of the high-capacity transit planning that's been happening in the region. Third is really identifying those corridors for improved local service. Fourth is maximizing our connectivity to those high-capacity investments. And then last, we'll talk about some complementary programs that are really important for transit in the region. So why is transit important? A few major reasons. One, it provides affordable connectivity across the community that we all feel is very important. The other element, too, is it provides an opportunity to address congestion in a cost-effective way. I love the graphic on the right. It shows what 200 people in buses and 200 people in cars looks like. So you can see just how significantly we can impact the congestion that we all drive through in central Oklahoma today. And then as a reminder, the study area is made up of over 1.3 million people and over 600,000 jobs. So this plan has a significant impact on the community. And this plan isn't developed in a vacuum. It's building on all the great work. There's many different high-capacity corridors. There's commuter rail planned in central Oklahoma from Edmond all the way down to Norman. There's a handful of bus rapid transit corridors and extensions, as well as streetcar extensions and other bus rapid transit corridors through the RTA. So all of these high-capacity corridors are really being leveraged as part of this plan. Similarly, there's been significant planning work that's been done across the member cities, as well as the operators. So those plans as well have been rolled into this long-range vision. And throughout the project, we had significant connectivity to the community. So all of the feedback that we've received from the community has been rolled into this vision as well. So without further ado, let's talk about the draft vision. It's made up of 4 principles, including improving our network connections, connecting to high-capacity investments, higher frequency service, and then complementary programs. So let's first talk about the higher frequency service. So everywhere on the map in green are areas that are proposed as part of the 30-year vision to have 15-minute headway local service. So these are all areas that have expanded local service. So this allows for easier connections to local transit, as well as more frequent service for connecting to different routes. So really important improvement. Next is connecting to high capacity investments. So everywhere on the map in purple are new areas for service that'll tie into those high capacity investments, as well as transfer facilities. So significant opportunity to leverage all of the new corridors in the city. The other thing the vision is made up of is improving the network connections. So with the high capacity investments, we now can realign local service and better leverage our local service, our local transit, to have more direct trips and better connection to transfer points. So this is really critical to continue to expand service within the region. Last but not least, complementary programs are another element that we see for expanded service. So first and foremost is expanded amenities, similar to the bus stop improvements as part of MAPS 4, as well as more flexibility through park and rides. And then last but not least is on-demand service zones. So these are areas that people can call up, and then they can get a ride from where they are to where they need to go, either on the fixed corridor or on a local service corridor. This really just expands the footprint of transit in the area. So overall, this represents significant investment. Over 23 new routes are shown in the draft transit vision and over 16 facilities. So significant infrastructure investment and expanded service. And of all of those corridors and projects in the regional vision, a significant portion of those are in Oklahoma City alone. So you can see 17 new routes and over 11 capital facilities. So this vision really encompasses an expansion of transit. So in closing, we had a a virtual town hall last Wednesday. So you can see Connect Central Oklahoma has some of the information from that town hall last week, as well as we have a really neat project website from you can reference from the QR code that walks through a story map of all the recommendations we just stepped through. So it's a really easy way for the community to really see the different elements of this transit vision. So with that, love to open up to any questions.
Luke, thank you. Questions? Questions for Luke? Yes.
Hello. Okay. Hi. More a comment, as I usually do, but I really appreciate a couple of very specific things. One of the things is the improving the overall access to connection. I just spent a little bit of time in Vancouver, and this is a city that is highly connected through transit and mass transit in a lot of different ways. So I appreciate especially the, we have the streetcar and that expands to the bus rapid transit and some of these things. I guess I do have one small question is do you know yet, what will it be like to use multiple of those services? Will there be an app or something that kind of connects everything together, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's the next phase of the project that we're working on now is what some case studies of other communities, how they operate different users in one area. So that'll be an important piece as the system goes forward that, CityLink in Edmond and Embark in Oklahoma City and potentially the RETA corridors, how from a user standpoint, it's all interoperable and it works together. So that's one of the pieces that we're looking at case studies now, and that'll be an important piece of the future of transit in the region.
Awesome. I love that. I'm a big fan of the concept of a 15-minute city, and I think this long-range plan really kind of leans into that idea of it might be a couple different modes of transit to get you there, but there's a lot of ways to do it without a car.
Yep.
Or without your personal responsibility of a car. So I appreciate those little pieces, and thanks for this work for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Great question. Anybody else? Anything else? Well, Luke, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work on it.
Have a good day.
Okay. Moving on to item 2D, recommend approval of engineering services contract with MacArthur Associates Consulting for the maps for South May Avenue Trail between Southwest 74th Street and Southwest 119th Street for a fee of $408,238.91.
Another engineering contract for design for the project as was described, and it went through the usual process and comes to you with a recommendation.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. If not, I'd take a motion in a second to approve. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2E, recommend approval of change order number 2 for the maps for sidewalks and related amenities, Phase 1B, vicinity of Southwestern Avenue and Southwest Grand Boulevard, vicinity of South Pennsylvania Avenue and Southwest 51st Street, and vicinity of Southwestern and Southwest 134th Street for an increase of $20,100.
As usual, things come up on construction projects like this. The first one is tree removal, and this has been coordinated with the property owner. Metal curb hoods, so there's some pipes that come out of the yards from the houses, either from the storm water drain off the house or from drain in the backyards, whatever it may be, but they were stubbed through the curb, and this is to clean that up and keep it from cracking and deteriorating. So these are metal hoods to connect those pipes to. And then expansion joint at locations where there are trees, rather than chopping the roots out and possibly killing the tree, devised an expansion joint that we can put over so the roots can continue to grow and not cause a tripping hazard.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Item 2F, site selection update for the MAPS 4 Senior Wellness Center.
So I wanted to give you an update of what we've been doing to locate this next Senior Wellness Center. Jason Cotton from ADG Blatt is here today to take you through the process that we've been looking at.
Thank you, David.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. Great to see everybody this afternoon. So with the meeting reschedule, I have to admit I am pinch hitting a little bit for one of my partners in crime, AJ Kirkpatrick. So I'm going to do my best to walk the board through this presentation. He's been doing a lot of really good work lately, and we're excited to bring this to you. So I think just to kind of frame the conversation a little bit, we've done a lot of really good work this year as it relates to the Senior Health and Wellness Center. We've identified a partner, the YMCA, and Anissa Chaddock with YMCA is here in the audience today. We have also gotten under contract our design team, so Hornbeak Architects in the room, as well as Studio Architecture. And so with those two significant milestones accomplished, really the MAPS office has appropriately turned its attention to site selection. And so David's charge to our office was to really start what I would describe as a citywide data-informed process to really try to ascertain exactly where the 5th Senior Health and Wellness Center should potentially be located. And so the presentation today is really about that, is just to walk you through really this inventory that AJ and the team have assembled to try to help the team navigate this conversation. And so that's what the presentation is about today. So AJ did a really good job at the subcommittee of describing what he calls push factors and pull factors. And so I think that the descriptions are self-explanatory. You know, things that might push the potential location of the Senior Health and Wellness Center away. Things like the existing Senior Health and Wellness Centers that were constructed as a part of MAPS 3. Also facilities that are already owned and operated by the YMCA, things like that in the community which would want to push this 5th Senior Health and Wellness Center to another location. You can see some other examples there, the existing zoning, current land use. And then on the other side of that, there's also what AJ describes as pull factors. And so those are things that want to pull the Senior Health and Wellness Center toward it. And so really larger, higher population densities would be an example of that. As well as demographics, residents 40 and above from the 2020 census data. And so AJ's kind of summarized that here. So we're going to walk through each of these items in some detail just to give you a sense of where we're at in this conversation. So really the first push factor we really started to look at was zoning. And so the team has prepared essentially a simplified depiction of the City of Oklahoma City zoning-based zoning districts. And so he's really grouped these into residential, agriculture. You can see the others there. I think the thing to take away from this is, you know, AJ described to me really looking at land uses or zoning that was really what we would probably classify as incompatible with the Senior Health and Wellness Center. And so one of the areas that we quickly identified was industrial zonings. For various reasons, locating a Senior Health and Wellness Center within an industrial zoning doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so we have highlighted for the board here this afternoon those areas inside City of Oklahoma City limits that are inside of an industrial zoning. And so you'll notice as I'm walking through this presentation, these slides kind of build on one another. And so this was one of the initial things that we looked at in terms of a push factor. Plan OKC also uses something called land use topology areas, and so you can see those highlighted here. If AJ were here, he's a planner, and he would do a really good job of describing these to you. The way that I would summarize them for you is it's really a zoning classification that is really designed to promote open space and encourage compatible uses being adjacent to one another and also connectivity between those land uses. And so you can see a summary of those here on this slide. As with the base zoning districts, there are a few of these that we as a team believe are in some ways incompatible with a Senior Health and Wellness Center, and so we've highlighted those here and have really started to gray those out. And so the way to really look at these maps, the areas that appear in dark gray on the slides are areas which we've kind of taken out of kind of the areas that we're looking at in detail, I guess is a way that I would describe it. So. With those areas removed, as I mentioned before, one of the other push factors is the location of existing Senior Health and Wellness Centers, locations of existing facilities operated by the YMCA. And so you can see both of those identified here, the OKC facilities with the hexagon and then the YMCA facilities with the orange triangles. I believe I remember the team saying that these are 2-mile radiuses from each one of these facilities, just to give you a sense of the area that we're kind of pulling off the table as it relates to those facilities. So taking those off of the table, you can see kind of where the analysis starts to lead us. And so as it relates to pull factor, so this is the other side, really a lot of the effort has really focused on population density and also the demographics of that population. And so this is really a planning tool. You can see here that we've taken the city of Oklahoma City, the entire limits of the city of Oklahoma City, divided into hexagonal areas, and then categorize those based on the population density. There is a scoring metric that's been used here by the planning department from 0 to 20. I am not going to try to explain exactly how that was derived, but it's essentially an index that indicates population density. The way to read this map, the darker the color, the higher the density is essentially the way that you would read it. And so taking this data, laying it over the push factors that I mentioned previously, we really start to see kind of what we would consider areas that we should potentially focus on as a team in terms of areas within the city that make a lot of sense as it relates to the location of this facility. It is a little bit hard to see on this slide. There is some, hopefully you guys can see it on your monitors, but there is some black text. The team really started to identify each one of these kind of pink highlighted areas by name. I'm not going to go through those in detail because there's another slide where they're a little easier to see. But you can, the thing to take away from this slide is the pink areas are the areas where we have really started to focus in on the analysis. And so this is another way to look at that same data. Again, starting to layer these things on top of each other. And then lastly, residents aged over 40 in 2020. And so this is the same population density that we looked at previously with the hexagonal areas. The only difference here is that these are actually organized by census tracts. And so the census tracts in some ways are not overly compatible with these areas that we've started to look at. And so the team did its best to kind of prepare a composite slide showing all of this information kind of in one picture. I think the thing to take away from this is that the population densities, these areas that we're looking on, really start to align pretty well with one another. And so I think I may stop here just to identify these areas for you. There is about 6 of them. I'm going to start from the north, Kilpatrick East, Kilpatrick West. You can see this area kind of near northwest Oklahoma City. You might have remembered that from when the resolution was being considered by council. So that's the near northwest area, Canadian County, which is out to the west. There's also an area in South Oklahoma City along the I-240 corridor that appears to lend itself well to a senior health and wellness center. And then southeast, which is obviously out further to the east towards Lake Draper. So those are kind of the areas that we really started to focus in on. So the remainder of the slides are really starting to look at population demographics within each of the areas. And so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I think once I go through the first couple, you'll start to get a feel for the information that we were looking at. So this summary data is for Kilpatrick West. The team has identified the number of census tracts that have been considered in the analysis. So you can see there was 5 separate census tracts that were included. The census data indicates about 19,000 residents currently live in that area or lived in that area as of 2020. You can see there the portion of that population that was actually over 40, 7,600 roughly, which is about almost 40% of the population in that area or within those census tracts. So each one of these slides really presents similar data. You can see southeast, about 29,000, roughly about 37% of the population over 40. The Canadian County area, roughly 10 census tracts. This one is a little bit odd because the census tracts are so large, and so you can see that the demographics that were looked at really go far outside of this area that we were really considering for an appropriate location. But you can see there about almost 14,000 residents over 40 and about a little less than 39% of the population being over 40. And so this data goes on and on. You can see it here, since 12 census tracts, Kilpatrick East, 40% of the population. You can see the I-240 area, about 50,000 residents, 41% of them being over 40. The reason I'm going through these quickly is there's a summary slide that shows all of them together, and I think seeing them all together is a little bit more helpful. Near Northwest, 29 census tracts, 75,000 total residents, about 31,000 over 40, almost 42% of the population in that area being over 40. So, in summary, you can see here the 6 kind of focus areas that the team's identified, the population in each one of those, and then obviously highlighted in green there, the population over 40, and you can see kind of the over 40 percentage in that far right column. And so these are really, I'm looking at the data here real quick. These are ranked by over 40 population. So you'll notice the far right column, the over 40 percentage is a little bit out of order. And so near Northwest, I think from our perspective, appears to be the area with clearly the largest population, which may potentially use a facility like this. And so with that, that is the quick version. But remember, tell AJ I did a great job, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason? Yes.
Thank you.
You bet.
This is a lot of data.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's awesome, though. I really appreciate this. Does this data follow, like, do we keep this data and use it for anything else in this realm? Like, let's say, I guess, what's next? We look for a site just within near Northwest, and then if we don't find anything, we continue down the path, or what is the next step?
Well, I'll provide some commentary, and then I think I'll let David finish the answer to your question. I think the MAPS office, our team's goal is to really take an inventory of data that we think is meaningful and having what I would describe as a data-informed process. And that's really what we've done here today. So we will certainly use this data, as it makes sense and as the conversation continues. As far as what the next step is, David, I might turn it over to you and let you kind of speak to that.
Right. Well, this is opportunity to tell us whether you think we're going the right direction or not as far as how we're doing it. And then at a later time, maybe next month, maybe the month after, we intend on identifying a site in one of these areas and bringing it to you as the location so that we can get started on design.
Makes sense to me. In that vein, my only thought was obviously the numbers say there's plenty in the near Northwest. My curiosity this specifically relates to the Canadian County parcel, since it's kind of it's isolated by itself. So I wonder, as you're going through site selection and all the next processes, if that's something to consider, just that near Northwest might have more access to the existing centers that already exist, and if we could maybe, I don't know, survey the people in each of these areas to actually see what is your access interest in using this sort of thing and how would you get to it sort of thing. I'm sure this is part of the process too, but that's my curiosity and my note just by taking in this data myself. So thank you.
Remember that the operator has some say in this too, and they've been working with us on this, but we have to make sure that we put the operator in a position to be successful. And if we are going to provide the sliding scale memberships, we have to have full payers also. So there's a lot of dynamics in here besides this. This is just the initial piece that I wanted you to see how we were addressing this.
I think it's Jessica.
I just have a quick follow-up to Chelsea's point about Canadian County. You said this was 2020
Yes,
census data?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Canadian County looks very different since 2020. And so I'd be curious to know maybe if we had some updated population figures on that, because there is entire miles of Canadian County that are completely developed now that.
So not all of it was 2020 though, Jason. I believe that the land use stuff is obviously current. A lot of that, it was the probably the population that was 2020, but that's a good point. We'll look into that.
I think one other thing I would offer up as it relates to that area, and this is one thing I heard from the team, is that we do start to have this conversation about the city limits and the population that we're serving. And I think as you look at those that are towards the edges of the city limits, it starts to beg the question, are we serving City of Oklahoma City residents or not? And I'm not saying one way is right or wrong, but I'm saying that's a part of the conversation too. I think particularly as it relates to the Canadian County area.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Jason? I would say for me, this is very helpful to have gone through, like, kind of let it be a data-driven decision, the numbers are pretty big. So I thank you for putting all that together.
You bet. Thank
Very
AJ,
helpful.
not me.
I'm sorry?
Thank AJ, not me.
All righty, moving on to item 2G, recommend approval of lease with Wilmont Place Baptist Church of Oklahoma City, MAPS 4 Youth Center Phase 2.
Recall that we've decided to locate the second wellness center in the Wilmont Church, and we are presently in the process of purchasing that, but we've got a long design period here, and they'd still like to be there, and that's good for the facility because it doesn't sit there vacant and be subject to any kind of vandalism and anything. So we have a lease here that allows them to stay in there for a year, and then there's an option for some additional months after that, and we're able to adjust that as we go.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, I take a motion in a second for approval. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2H, recommend approval of change order number 1 for MAPS 4 Oklahoma City Louisa McCune Animal Welfare Center for an increase of $144,127.81.
So no matter what we do on these projects, sometimes things pop up. We did extensive surveys and title search, and once we started doing grading out there, found that there is an undocumented line for state fiber that's not in an easement, it's just across the property. We've been working with them to try and get it relocated, but it's been about 3 months now. So what you see on here is a cost to, once they relocate the line, for our contractor to demo the line that's sitting in there. And what I should further point out that this is one of those fiber lines that was stuck in those old gathering lines from oil field activity, and it just kind of goes across the property. So that's what we have to demo, is pull that out because it's significantly in the grade of the building. Then we have subcontractor mobilizations because the contractor had some of his subcontractors that had to stop work and couldn't finish what they were doing because this line has to stay active because it's carrying thousands, if not millions, of bytes of data through that pipeline, and we can't just cut it and pull it out. So they have to come back, and that's what we call remobilization, bringing their guys back. Then on top of that, there's 2 months of compensation for what we call general conditions, and that means that the project is being extended and they're not able to do full capacity work right now. So their cost of bonds, cost of insurance, cost of the office that sits out there, superintendent, all those costs they have to incur by waiting on us, that we are waiting for the state to move this line. So there's $108,000 in those charges, and those were negotiated down from a bigger number. And then there's some weather days, because you may have noticed we've gotten a lot of rain here lately. There's 16 days at no cost to the project.
Okay, any questions on those
Yeah,
items?
David, I do have
Chelsea?
one.
Yeah, Kevin?
So the state doesn't bear any responsibility for covering any of these costs?
We will have to see.
Okay.
Okay, Chelsea, did you have something?
Has the state given a timeline for when they can actually move?
They're supposed to, they were meeting with the contractor today that the state has to move this line. We should know today, but I don't know the answer as we sit here.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 2I, change order number 18 for the MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum of an increase of $115,604. I thought we were done with this.
Oh, that's what I was going to point
Kevin?
out, is we had a very successful ribbon cutting. Many of you were there. these items have already been done. I'm bringing them to you as a change order, but in order to get it done in time for that ribbon cutting, we authorize these things. And they're things that we couldn't say no to. They needed additional power. And I can touch on any of these that you want. There's many of them on here, and you see a lot of them, $3,000, $879, $2,000 in the grand scheme of things. And there's a couple of, $21,000, but that was some hazardous chemicals that needed to be removed from the existing arena, unsuitable soils that had to be removed. So this is all understandable, usual construction stuff, but like I said, in order to get that open when we needed to, we proceeded.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 2J, recommend adoption of resolution approving change order number 1 for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 4 additional improvements for an increase of $79,490.30 and authorizing the use of excess MAPS 3 Oklahoma City Capital Improvement sales tax collections and/or interest to fund the change order.
So this is a MAPS 3 item. It is only coming to this board and then to council. There is no subcommittee oversight on this. But recall in the original bid, we had as an alternate this dividing wall that goes in the main room. We didn't award it because it was 12.7 or 12.29% of our change order limit, which is 15%. We didn't want to burn that up right off the beginning.
Right.
But now they've got the slab poured, the fences are up, they're substantially far down the road on construction. We feel comfortable to go ahead and execute this. Contractor has agreed to still do this for that price, so
Okay.
we ask that we award it.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, if not, take a motion in a second. The motion passes. Thank you. And our last action item, 2K, recommend adoption of resolution approving use of the open market contract with Cooper Tint and Electronics for window tinting, MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center, number 4, additional improvements of $4,289.32, and authorizing the use of the excess MAPS 3 sales tax collections and/or interest to fund.
Normally, we would just proceed with this and tell you that we proceeded with it because we have an open market purchase. It's not a whole lot of money, but we're asking for excess collections out of the MAPS 3 fund, which we still have over $1.5 million. And again, it's a ongoing city contract.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Motion passes. Thank you all. Moving on to item 3, discussion items. Do we have any discussion items?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I do have actually a question. So what happens if there are remaining MAPS 3 dollars after all of the MAPS 3 projects are completed? Does it roll into 4? What happens?
That will have to be decided by
By
council.
council.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we can campaign a little bit. Okay. Any other discussion items? Okay. Moving on to item 4, subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee have a report for us today? Okay. Item 5, updates and status of the MAPS 4 program. Mr. Todd.
And we briefly talked about the Animal Welfare Center. It continues as much as it can with that line in the way. Diversion Hub is going well. They plan on being what we call dried in, meaning weatherproof, about the middle of August or so. Continue to build a lot of sidewalks. And then we've got a lot of projects in design that before the end of the year are going to be out for bid, like the Crisis Center, Foster Center, Youth Center, Restoration Center continues in design. So we've got a lot of things. We've also got some notices out right now for, and I forgot to mention, parks projects are in design. We got another set of parks projects out to get landscape architects for. We've got some more sidewalks that are out for design. A couple other projects. So we're pushing as much out the door as we can.
Okay, sounds like MAP's office is hopping.
We are.
Okay. Moving on to item 6, comments by board, staff, citizens. No citizens signed up. Okay, anything from staff?
No, ma'am.
Any comments from the board? Okay, I would just say thank you all for being here. I know summer can be kind of tough, but we do need to have a quorum and get our business done. So appreciate you being here. With that, item 7, we are adjourned.